Save the Kales is sponsored in part by Cartridge World Phillipsburg, saving time, money, and the planet, and by Jenny's Kuwali, authentic Malaysian cuisine.
When I was thinking about what to cook for this kind of Thanksgiving show, I was inspired by a talk I heard from Colleen Patrick Goudreau, who talks about vegan celebratory dishes and holiday dishes, and mainly how a lot of times when we don't have like a big turkey in the middle of our Thanksgiving table, what we want is something that looks really festive and fun. And so I came up with this stuffed squash recipe to kind of take that place and be a real showstopper and a real centerpiece of the holiday table. So to get started, we are going to use, this is probably my favorite squash now in the past year or two. This is called Delicata squash, and you can see that right here, Delicata squash. And we're gonna cut this in half, and what is so cool about these squashes is that the skin on them is really, really thin, so you can eat it. You don't have to peel them, which can be like really, really tricky if you've ever tried to peel a butternut squash. So we're gonna chop the end off, and then just cut this down the middle, and take those seeds out. And it has a very like butternut squash kind of flavor. And it makes these perfect little vessels, which are gonna be great when we do our stuffing. So the oven is at, of course, 350 degrees. We're gonna put these in this pan and just put a little bit of olive oil on the top to help them brown a little bit. I'm just gonna use this brush to kind of spread it around and put it on the other half. The recipe we're making today will be enough for about 4 to 6 people. Okay, so before we put that in the oven, we are going to cut the next part of this dish, which are our potatoes. We are going to make a stuffing out of quinoa, potato, leek, and apple. So those are the flavors we're gonna have today. So take these potatoes, and what we wanna do is cut them really, really tiny into these small little like cubes, these little dices. All right, and you can see the size there, it's like, well, pretty much like the size of a dice, really. Okay, and now we're just gonna put a little olive oil in there and some salt, and we're gonna get these roasted. It actually took the same amount of time to roast as my squash, so I'm just gonna put them on the same dish since I have some room, and take everything out when they get brown. All right, in the oven. So our potatoes and our squash is roasting in the oven, and now we just have some cooked quinoa. I just used a tri-colored quinoa. You can use rice if you'd prefer that, but this is a little healthier for you, I think, and it's pretty tasty too and really hearty. So I just cooked a cup of dry quinoa in 2 cups of water, and then you could also cook in broth, which I recommend because it's a lot tastier. So we're gonna set that aside, and that's just gonna hang out here and wait for us. And now we have a leek, and this is what a leek is. I never cooked with one until I was into my 20s, so in case you don't know. And how we're going to cut this is by chopping this bottom part off and then slicing it just like that. And a leek is kind of like an oversized scallion or oversized green onion that's a little more mild in flavor. So now, one thing you want to be careful for when you cut a leek is that because it has all these layers and all these leaves and things, some dirt and grit and sand can get trapped in there, as you can see, like, oh, there's one. So what we want to do is run some water over this, over at the sink to get all that dirt out of there. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay, that's better. Now it's nice and clean. So I'm just gonna go ahead and chop this up, just starting at one end all the way to the other end. Okay, so that is ready to go. We're gonna add this to a skillet over on the stove with a little bit of olive oil and just put it at a medium saute and start to brown it up. The leek is gonna take about, say, 10 minutes or so to start to get a little bit brown. And once it does, we're going to add some green onion and some fresh parsley, and we're gonna cut some apple as well. So right now I'm just gonna cut the ends off, put those there, and just cut these right down to the white part. This is 1 bunch of green onion. Okay. And some parsley. I'm gonna add about 1 or 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley chopped up. Okay, let's get that added to our pan. We're just about to take the leek off the stove. So we're gonna cut up this apple, and this is a Honeycrisp apple because they are the greatest apples, but you can use whatever kind of apple you would like. This is just gonna bring a little bit of sweetness to the dish that right now has a lot of like oniony flavor. And since we cooked the quinoa in broth, it has that very deep kind of earthy, brothy flavor. So this is just gonna lighten it back up a little bit. All right, we're gonna cut these apples that same size that we used with the potatoes. Just kind of a small little dice. So we're gonna set that right here for now. We're gonna add the quinoa into the pan. We're gonna add about a tablespoon of nutritional yeast that's gonna help bring it kind of a cheesy, creamy sort of flavor, a little bit of salt, and maybe just a touch of oregano if you'd like. And then we're gonna add the apple in and fold everything together. The potatoes came out of the oven along with the squash, and we've added the potatoes to our quinoa mixture along with the apples and the leeks and all that other good stuff. So that's here. And now we're just going to stuff the squashes, and you can see they turned out great, and they're just a perfect little vessel to fill with whatever you want. So we will add some of our mixture in there. And when you serve this and eat this, just let your guests know that they can actually cut straight through it and eat the entire squash. They don't have to stop to scoop anything out. And this would be really good with like a mushroom gravy on top. But you can see how pretty it looks, you know, and then you don't feel like you're just kind of stuck eating like a bunch of side dishes, which is I think how, how sometimes people think we feel at holidays. There we go. That is beautiful. And that's going to be really filling too with all those veggies and then that quinoa for all that protein. So there you have it, guys, our finished dish. This is a stuffed delicata squash with a potato, leek, apple, and quinoa stuffing. I hope you enjoy it.